Come get your victory at the table. Let's talk. Let's talk. Come get your victory at the table. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on whatever time you have decided to tune in with us. We would like to welcome you to another episode of Victory at the Table Talk, where we have down-to-earth conversations about various topics to assist with your walk with Christ. Here at the table, you can get the victory, but you can also get a taste of Victory Apostolic Church right here in Matteson, Illinois, where we are building victorious Christ-like lives. Enjoy this episode.
Praise the Lord and welcome back. Welcome back to part 2 of Her Space podcast, trying to raise godly children in an ungodly world. You'll remember I'm Davita White, your host, and my guests are a mother of 2 children, 22 and 21, CoMakiya Smith, and mother of 3 boys, 11, 9, and 2, Delores Walker, and mother of 14-year-old twin boys and 5-year-old daughter, Danielle Matthews. Welcome back to my guest. So we are here to get things started. And ladies, we got some stuff we want to share today. So we're going to get real. What do they say? We're going to keep it real today?
All right.
Okay. So let's get right into it. So we left off where we were talking about technology and its influences on our children and what it has made us do in our parenting. And so I think I'm going to go to Danielle first, because you had mentioned a situation. I think it was with Snapchat.
Yes, it was Snapchat with my twin boys.
Okay. Tell us more about the situation and then how you resolved it.
Well, what happened was I benefited of having twins, and one of my twins let me know that an inappropriate message was sent to the other twin. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, let me see this phone. Let me see what's going on. And it was an inappropriate screenshot that was sent from a young lady that is a part of their group. They have group chats. Right. So this young lady sent an inappropriate image to my son. And the way I handled that was I said, all right, well, first of all, we have to take care of this young lady. We cannot be friends with this young lady anymore. And that was one of the things that they showed me. They also showed me some text messages that I just didn't feel like was in the zone where we need to be, also that was sent from this young lady as well. So I said, okay, we have to remove this person from our Snapchat, however you do that. I said, however you need to do this, we need to do that. But I also made him delete Snapchat from his phone for about a month, because I felt like, well, maybe you need a break from it as well, because that was just the one instance. I didn't know if there was more instances of it happening, so that's just how I handled that.
Sounds good. Now, when you say inappropriate photographs,
mm-hmm. Well, it was not of the young lady. It was just a Google search that was done, screenshotted and sent to my son, but it was inappropriate. Yeah, so
that's bad
it was just something that, just to make clear, it was not my son's doing. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even the young lady's, personal photos. It was just something that she Googled and decided to send to. It was the whole group, mm-hmm. but because they're my sons, I'm able to say, no, that's not how we roll. And I actually did send a message within that group saying, my sons are not allowed to behave this way or receive these types of messages, and they're going to take a break. So they did.
Cool. Now, did they understand that it wasn't necessarily like a reprimand for them, because they didn't really do anything wrong?
It was not in that sense. They didn't do anything wrong, but only one twin told me of it happening.
Ah, gotcha.
So in that sense, I said, I want you to make sure that if something is happening like this, mm-hmm. you know what's appropriate, you know what's not appropriate. You should probably have said, Mom, I don't feel comfortable with this. Both of them are in this group chat. So one son did come and one son didn't. but both of them got that removed from them for a month. It wasn't just the one son. I just had to make sure that kind of like the air was cleared is what I was trying to do. It wasn't really a reprimand. It was like, let's just take a break because I don't know what will come, because I did get in there and put a message as their mother. I just wanted it to just kind of chill out for a bit. Like for me, Snapchat is taking pictures with filters. I had no idea that there was a whole nother world of group messaging with amongst teens. And so that was something new to me. I said, okay, let's just calm down. This was like within a month of them getting a phone.
Wow.
So I was like, already?
Right.
You know? So I was already kind of nervous about getting them a phone. I was going to make them wait until they had graduated 8th grade, and this was kind of like December-ish, but because of certain, things, I just wanted them to have access. I'm a single parent, so if I had to leave out or if they were, with other relatives, I wanted them to have easy access to me, not depending upon others to contact me. So, but when that happened, it was easy. They didn't take it bad.
That's good.
They knew that they know it's my job to, protect them. I tried as much as I can, and I'm not always on there. It was even new to our household, them having phones. Right. So at that time, that was what I felt was best. And now he does have Snapchat now, but he knows, okay, if my mother's going to get on here and put a message, let me just make sure my friends know that that's not the way we roll.
Right. Yeah. That's good. And so they were 13 then when they did get their, which is interesting too, because just kind of taking a little bit of a survey, how old were your children, CoMakiya, when they finally did get a mobile phone?
7 and 8.
Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about that because I know you had mentioned even before we were on camera why you chose that particular age. And then Delores?
9 and 10.
9 and 10. Okay, so very recent too. And we all have different reasons for the ages that we chose, which is why, I wanted to ask that and then to be able to elaborate on why that age, because, it could be they're going to be away from us. We, have work schedules, whatever. And so you have to make those choices according to everybody's an individual. But I don't think 5 in kindergarten is an appropriate age, even with considering parents' work schedules. And I say that because that was a situation that occurred. My daughter had met a little 5-year-old when I was assistant principal at a school. And so she goes, well, where's your phone number? I can take your phone number. And my daughter was like, I don't have a phone. And she was 2nd grade, I think, by then. And it was like, no, she wasn't going to get one. She finally did get one. I think it was 6 or 7 because she had some after school activities, and that was why. But enough about that. Yeah. Delores, you had talked about the whole technology piece and just, contemplating what or when or how might you have to deal with, taking the phone or what was going on. Can you give us a little bit of background on what made you contemplate that choice?
Yeah. So it's like every other day, it feels like I have the buyer's remorse. So I was just like, I don't know. And my husband and I, we had to, try to come to an agreement, and he wasn't all for it, but I was kind of pushing it more because they knew who to push on, so the boys are kind of pressing me for the phones. And I'm like, okay, came up with some kind of valid reasons why they should have a phone. But the whole contemplating taking it like every other day is, again, what you just said, Danielle, with the group chat for me is the thing. Like, I haven't found anything on like Snapchat and all of that, although one of my children did make a social media account and he was not supposed to. Because there are no social media accounts at this age. Phones are enough. But, they get into these group chats with their friends or their so-called friends, classmates, people, that they've come in contact with through sports or whatever. And it just gets real messy. And, everybody is talking and, oh, you like such and such and you like such and such. And then it's like I have to kind of defend, myself from this embarrassment. And so now you jonesing. Now you're talking about this person, and now this person is talking about you. And now there are, words that should not be said being said. And then that can spill over into school, into sports, and this and that. And so a lot of the times, like bullying and fights and everything that happen in the school day start on social media. And so my husband and I are really trying to prevent that. And, sometimes I feel like I don't do enough to do that. but it's something that we have to do. And so that's why I contemplate like every other day, like, I don't know about this, because this is a bit much. Maybe it's too much, access and too much of a responsibility, and maybe y'all not ready for it.
Yeah, so, I hear you.
And as a teacher, I attest to that in terms of coming back into schools with it, because Mondays, when I was in middle school teaching, was like the worst. Monday morning, because after all they had said on the group chats and all that, that's when the fights were occurring, or after breaks, that's when fights were occurring. So I agree to that.
And it doesn't help. My husband is a dean at one of the local high schools, and so he sees like the good, bad, and the ugly. And so, I try to provide the balance. Like, you see all of the bad stuff, and so our kids are X, Y, and Z, and they may not be into that. So he just, he kind of provides that insight, like, this is what happens, and it starts just like it starts with what they're, saying back and forth to their friends. And now somebody's in their feelings. And now on Monday morning, you want to fight, over dumb stuff.
Yeah.
So.
It's not like playing the dozens when we were in school, or even the little piece of paper with check this box, you like me, like yes or no, or maybe whatever. Yeah, it's a whole new world.
Because it's on a grander scale now. And it's just like, at any given time, they can screenshot the conversation. And if the friends have a social media account, they post it to social media, and now it's just like anybody can have access to.
Much more trickier.
Yeah. It's tricky. That's that's a good word for it.
And at this age, that preteen and early teen age, they don't quite understand that some of these things on social media are going to follow them.
Come back to haunt you. The ramifications of that are legit.
Exactly. Exactly. People have lost jobs, scholarships, all kinds of things from some silly stuff they said or did on social media. And so it's real.
Yep.
And thankfully, my boys are very innocent. I don't want to say naive, but like the things that they like to do are just like, for instance, Jeremiah has this YouTube channel that he claims he's famous on, but all he does is play his video game and records it. And it's just him speaking during, like, this is what I'm going to do now, guys, And he's so innocent. And I love that about, he still has that level of innocence in him. And so they still need the direction. They still need parents, obviously, that can say, look over the shoulder and say, you know what, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Or, just, also I try to have an open door. So I was surprised that both twins didn't come to me and say, I think that one twin just kind of like shrugs things off more so than the other, or the other one's like, more keen to tell mama what happened, so.
Oh, that's a good. I'm going to stop talking because you just brought up another point about like just being open and like especially as your kids are getting older, and I'm kind of having that struggle now, and trying to keep my kids' names like confidential. Everybody knows me in the area, but I don't want them to know who specifically the kid is. But my kids and I, we have a really good relationship, and it was kind of hurtful. Like if they're not talking to me about stuff, and so it's like I'll find something out, and it'll be really trivial stuff, but it's just like, oh man, like I thought we had this connection and we had this bond, and I keep an open door, and I'm even keeled. So like if you tell me something, I don't fly off the handle.
Right.
You tested
even
me
though
before.
Sometimes inside you may feel
you're flying
like,
off the handle. But if you fly off the handle, then they're not. It's going to shut down. They're not going to talk to you. And so I was in my feelings a little bit, just to be honest.
But I feel like sometimes they don't tell us because they're desensitized to it. They see these things so often that it's like,
yeah,
and that's on me, I think too, because like I said last time, I don't always check. I need to check histories. I need to see what you're looking at. Because if you didn't think that was a big deal, maybe, the TikTok videos or whatever, and I try to say, nope, y'all done. Like put time limits on it, or make sure. It's just so hard. It is a hard thing to do because the world is around them.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't stop it from being around them. The only thing you can really do is, talk to them, like you said, and be open. Yeah. But it's like a rat race with them. They try to be like their counterparts.
Sure.
When you want them to have some type of fortress within them to be able to push the things that are supposed to be pushed away.
Sure.
So,
CoMakiya, tell me, our kids are about the same age, and I know for me, sometimes it was very overwhelming because this was such a new thing. Like, our kids aren't that old, but, it was kind of the beginning, particularly with the smartphone era. My daughter was like middle schoolish, I think, something like that, when all of that really, became more and more prevalent, and being able to access things online so much easier just with a phone. And so, how did you deal with all that?
The good thing for me was that I was learning it at the same time they were. So, and there were several times as a parent as well, I felt like I should take their phone. But a lot of times I decided not to, because we use things as a teachable moment. And I decided to say, hey, if I take the phone, we can't see how they would have reacted to that situation. So there were cases, where a perfect example is where my daughter's friends at one time, when they first got their phones, decided that they were going to call themselves as a group bad expletive word. Because that's what a lot of the young ladies are seeing now. Yeah. And so they, assumed it was like a badge of honor or something like that. But I took that moment because I checked their phones regularly, sometimes surprisingly, and it was hilarious. I enjoyed it very, very much. And when I saw that, I decided to talk to the young ladies and explain to them why they shouldn't say that, because sometimes they really don't understand the magnitude of what they're saying, what they're posting, what they're doing. And sometimes if the child is on the receiving end of the text message, they don't report it because they didn't post it. So they think, well, it's not my fault, or it's not my responsibility. And so we talked about a lot of the text messages, the situations that went on as a result of some of the things that their friends posted. We would even talk about some decisions that they would make, or some of their friends would make, whether they were wise choices or not. As they matured, we discussed some things that I may have done or may not have done, and how I would have handled a situation if it were anywhere near similar. So we used, as they matured, we used a lot of different teaching techniques, but I didn't necessarily, I didn't take the phone. What I did do, though, at night, because it would just annoy me to no end if I would have heard the phone all night. So they did have a phone curfew. And so they would stand outside of my bedroom door right before the curfew, and they would text all their friends and say, hey, don't text me after this time, because, if the curfew was 9 o'clock, for example, if 9:01 caught you and that phone was still in your hand and it wasn't in my room on the charger, you didn't get your phone the next day. So I wasn't taking it because you did anything wrong necessarily in the phone, but I was taking it because you didn't follow the rule of bringing it here at this time like I asked you to.
Boundaries.
Absolutely. And of course, I had to have the passwords to everything. I would log in and check all the time, and just followed up on a lot of it with conversation.
Absolutely. And that's the real key. And that kind of brings me to another question that I have. How do you handle your children dealing with choices, decisions, potentially making mistakes that, because you mentioned too, CoMakiya, that may have been something similar to what you were faced with when you were growing up, their age, what have you, and but still allowing them to sort of learn as well, because we want to protect our kids, and we want to, if you will, shelter them, but we don't want to make it so that they are so sheltered that they don't get it. And like when they go off to college, for example, they go crazy because they've, never been exposed to anything. So how did you deal with it? CoMakiya, I'm going to start with you. How did you deal with, either sharing your mistake in life, or what did you do?
So we talk about mistakes and decisions often, primarily because they're now in their younger 20s. And this is really where I just didn't make some of the best choices when it came to making friends or making decisions, because, of course, by the time you're 20 or 21, you feel like you grown. That was another series. But yeah, there were a lot of decisions that I made at that time that I tried to start to talk to them about before they went off and moved out of the house. So that, not so that they would follow in my footsteps, but so that they would understand my path. And then if they wanted to make the choice to walk that same path, they could do that. But at least they know where that's going to lead. So and there was one thing in particular that my son did. And when I found out about it, I cried. I cried like a baby. He goes, well, what are you crying for? I did it, not you. And I'm like, but I didn't want you to do it.
Right.
And, we had a dialogue about it. And his response was, well, I know how you grew up, but you've got to let me have this experience of my own and develop this on my own and, deal with what comes from that. It wasn't a super terrible experience. It was just the fact that he did something that I didn't want him to do. But of course, he's a young adult, and I can't control what he does. He was living in his own apartment. And so I just had to go with that and accept that this is where they are now. They're growing. They're going to do things that necessarily, I may not completely agree with or condone, but I can still guide them along the way. One of the best things now is that he actually calls me for advice, and he listens.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
And he will say it, when he first calls, because, of course, I'm in this phase where they're, in their young adulthood, where when they first call, there's a gasp, is there an emergency?
Right.
And so once I answer the phone and I'm like this, and then they get me off the ledge, oh, well, no, I just want to ask you what you think about something. Oh, you want to ask me what I think? Oh, this is great. So, we can talk for a good 30, 45 minutes just about some ideas and, move some things back and forth. And so then I'll let them know, especially, I think some of my bigger mistakes that I talked to them about the most were financial mistakes. And so we do have a lot of discussions about that because, as you're getting older, you have more energy and you have more time in your younger years. Sure. So you want to make solid financial investments if you can while you're young.
Yeah, because then it's a lot less that you have to deal with when you become our age.
Absolutely.
Because you will have set it up, early on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I see that there's a question from our studio audience.
Yes, I have a question for your panel. I want to know, are there times when you feel like a bad parent?
Okay, so the question is for the panel. Anyone can start us off. Are there times that you feel like a bad parent?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yes, we all said yes.
Which that's unanimous, huh?
Yeah.
So who wants to go first?
I can go first. I just asked.
All right.
I just asked one of my sons last night actually if I was doing an okay job. Because I have a different experience. Now for me, I've always had to talk to my children, like CoMakiya just said, about choices that I've made that have made our life different. It's hard being a single mother. I try to do my best at that job. Don't get me wrong. But their experience is different.
Yeah.
And have I ever felt like I'm a bad parent? I don't want to say bad, but I think that sometimes I know that there may be gaps. Okay. There may be some things that have not gone down the path that I've wanted it to go, obviously. There have been some experience that I experienced that my children had to experience with me.
Yes.
Where else were they going to be? Right. So in terms of being a bad parent, no, I don't think I'm a bad parent, but I know that we have had our struggles, and thank God, that we are a praying family. Thank God that breakthroughs happen. And with that communication is key, because I've had to say, okay, mommy had a struggle. You went through that struggle with me. Now we're trying to get back to solid ground. So I don't think that there is a such thing as bad parenting.
Right.
There's a such thing as a journey, and whatever happens, hopefully you get back to whatever solid ground you're supposed to be on. But everyone, and I think the kids need to know that. They need to know that life is not a bed of roses. That there are mistakes to be made. You're not always going to be at peace, even within yourself. And so, but I still ask them that question. How's mommy doing? I do, because I want them to say, well, could you stop yelling, so you could just stop yelling. So, no, I mean, they don't really say that, but, I want to know, is there anything else that, I know today, maybe it was a rough day, maybe we didn't get off on the best foot, or maybe it's just me feeling inadequate.
I think that's it.
Are we doing
times.
okay? Because kids pick up on every feeling that you have, whether you try to hide it or not.
They do.
Like take for instance, when my father passed, it was a horrendous experience for me. They were right there with me, So if I was crying, I would try to cover it up, but there's no covering up something.
And they were grieving their
and
grandfather.
they were very close to my father. So it was those types of instances. Even if they sense you on a phone having a conversation, it's tense, So no, I don't think there's, for me, I do ask my kids if everything is going, how do we do today? Have those little check-ins. But I do think that you do have to have that conversation. And so.
And I agree. I think that the honesty, the communication, all of that comes into play because it's real life, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want our kids to think that we expect things from them that we're not willing to give, even something that seems simple, but may be very difficult for parents to do when they are wrong, if you will, to apologize to their kids. Like, I've heard people, well, I don't need to apologize to my child.
No, I definitely apologize to them.
All the time.
Yeah, because I'm human, and I think that's a
Right.
part of, teaching them that everybody is human and it's okay to make these mistakes, but, what are you going to do to try to, right your wrongs, And so with that, and kind of going back to the previous question from the studio audience, I certainly, I feel like a bad parent at times, and I know that it's partly because, or mainly because I really put it on myself. Because my kids affirm me like every chance they get. Hey, you're the best mommy ever. And not like when I'm getting them fast food or anything. It's just randomly they'll just come and lay on me and kiss on me. And, we have a really beautiful relationship. And so they actually kind of bring me back from the edge, of feeling like, oh, man, I dropped the ball on that one, because sometimes, especially this past year, let's get into that. Right? 2020 was a whole big mess.
Yes.
And so it just brought a lot of things. And working from home and having a 2-year-old going through the terrible twos and, all of this with e-learning with my kids. And then I started a new job and my mom was sick. And it's like the guilt that comes along with trying to be there for everybody. And you just feel like you're stretched thin and that you're not there enough for your kids. Even if you're physically there, like at least for me, I kind of felt like I wasn't there and present enough. Oh, I should have been helping him more with his homework. Oh, I should have been playing with this one more, engaging more, helping him write his name, learn his numbers, And it's just like, man, look, I'm human. I can't do it all, but I have to constantly tell myself that.
Right. And that's key. Yeah. How about you, CoMakiya?
Well, thankfully, I had a good village.
Amen.
I didn't necessarily consider myself a bad parent, but I did have a lot of bad moments as a parent. I tell my kids now, I tell them that for me, as they say now, I consider them my biggest flex. Because just seeing where they are now at their age and at their stage, I wasn't there when I was that age.
Yes.
And so now to be able to live this part of the journey with them and see where they are at 20 and 21, my mind was not there at all. It was not on, making sure that I had insurance and, investments at an early age and things like that. I wasn't thinking about those things. No. I mean, I was a young parent and I considered myself very responsible. And so I did sometimes I tried a lot harder than maybe I should have. Like, I felt like if every time there was a science fair, because I was the younger parent, my kids had to have the best project. They had to have the best. By the time, when my daughter was running for student council, we couldn't just put the posters up. We had to have commercials and a website and things like, I was like a whole campaign manager for a high school, treasurer position. But
I remember that.
Yeah, it was great. It was a real good commercial.
It was bomb.
But I poured in a lot of other ways to try and compensate for the times when I did feel like I was a bad parent. If my daughter was a very picky eater, for example, and so some days it was just like, okay, you don't want vegetables? Cool. I'll just be the bad parent. Today, you just eat the fries. That's all you're eating? Okay. And then, I had to start thinking of other ways to kind of compensate. Right. Started sneaking spinach into the eggs and, wrap it in a burrito so they couldn't tell and she couldn't pick it out. I had to figure out ways to compensate for that little thing. If there were some bad parenting things where I kind of didn't care, I had to make it so that I did care and fix it.
Well, it's good that you did that because I told a couple of little white lies about chocolate and Brussels sprouts, but we won't go there. She says, I still can't get over this. But I think that's the real key is just being honest with yourself, being honest with your children. If you do have those bad parenting moments, to just reassess, ask the kids, maybe just for a little bit of a summary, of how you're doing as a parent. I think that's a really good idea. And I think that kids will, and the reason that I think this is because I'm seeing it in my daughter that, we have conversations where she says to me, it was rough, with reprimands or what have you, or the look and all those kind of things. But she began to understand that it was in her best interest, that it was through love, that it was through caring for her that I took those, particular positions to be able to discipline and through the discipline, teaching her how to discipline herself. So like you were saying, CoMakiya, when she went off to school, she didn't party like I did. But that's another story too.
Right. And my kids have really good schedules.
Oh
like
my
they
gosh.
are really schedule oriented, which is awesome.
And her GPA is bomb. Hey, all I know is I have my papers. Okay, that's all I know. That's all, and we're gonna leave that there.
College, C equal degree.
I was gonna say it, but I didn't want to say it. Like that was our motto. It's so terrible. But man, it was
my
rough.
daughter fights for those grades. Even in college, she fights for those grades. And we were having a conversation recently about an essay that she was writing about something that makes her unique, and she brought up the fact, which I had completely forgotten about, that she had never missed a day of school.
Wow, that's
since
amazing.
Preschool. She had never missed a day.
I missed as many as I could.
And I literally remember getting out shoveling snow for this child because she was crying one day when there was like a blizzard out here. They had closed down transportation and everything, and she really wanted to go to school that day. And we're outside trying to shovel the snow, the shovel path for her to go to school. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Wow. But now she is really schedule oriented and really, shows up for things. And it's just a testament to something like that. So, just seeing them do things like that, it's amazing. It's amazing.
That sounds wonderful. So tell me a little bit about like how, or if you feel that there is something that you could have done differently, something that you could have done better, something that, just, kind of giving yourself that summary, if you will, and kind of looking back on things. Maybe you didn't make the best choice in the discipline, whatever it might have been in your parenting. Is there something that you would change or not? And tell us a little bit about that. Delores, I'll start with you.
Yeah, you know what? And I think that kind of tied in with the apology and not feeling like the best parent all of the time, because sometimes my patience was short. Sometimes I feel stressed out, and my response to my kids kind of, it shows. And it's just like, after I have some time to kind of cool down or think about it, it's just like, you know what, I could have done that better, and I apologize. Like if it's something that deserves an apology, I have no problems with apologizing to my children. But yeah, sometimes my response is, not that I'm like going upside the head or anything like that. It's just, it's just more stress in my demeanor. And just
like short, curt
very
answers,
short.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. And so,
Yeah.
I would do it differently. I would exercise more patience. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Danielle?
I think for me, it would mainly would be making sure the children have a voice. I think that sometimes we can get into whatever it is, disciplining them or saying, well, you should do this, more than what you're doing. And what I found out that I wasn't giving them a voice because they would tell certain things to my mom or my sibling. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? And it was because I wasn't letting them.
They didn't think they'd be heard.
They didn't think they were going to be heard. So sometimes I got to put my hands underneath my legs or just, close the mouth real tight just to make sure that I'm letting them speak, just letting them communicate so that we can have that open relationship and communication that I want from them. Because sometimes it's so easy just to, well, you should have been doing this and you should, just nagging them or trying to provide every solution when they have to do this on their own. I'm sure that, like, for instance, what CoMakiya is saying, they're at that position because they learned how to get there on their own. And I think that was, I tend to be kind of like a helicopter parent, like I do, just being honest, when they need to have their own path. So just letting them have their own voice. When I ask them what happened, I just kind of have to be quiet and let them tell me what happened. And just maybe I try to ask clarifying questions. Well, how do you feel about that? I'm learning. It's an evolution for me. So I'm hoping to get better with that.
Yeah. And CoMakiya, is there anything that you would change or do differently?
One of the only things that I probably would have changed, I mean, there were a lot of things that happened that I understand why it happened and we learned from it, so I wouldn't change those things at all. But I think in the process, I probably would have congratulated them more and told them that I'm proud of them and told them to be proud of themselves for different accomplishments and different stages of their lives. Like, you can go your whole lifetime waiting for someone else's congratulations, and the one that you really want is just from your parent. So, you can take all the pictures and you can post them on Snapchat or Facebook, and everybody else can say congratulations to your child, but are you saying the congratulations? Are you having that conversation with them? And then not just saying congratulations, but why? Right. Like, look at when you accomplish something in particular. Wow, this was a challenge for you. Or math, for example. Oh wow, math was really a challenge for you, and you really fought hard, and you got this C-. But if the child was working really, really hard at it, that C- could be like A+.
Yes.
If you know that they put in that work. So just having that congratulatory moment, because by the time they get out in the world's not going to congratulate them for anything.
Nope. Not even on the job when they give you a raise.
Absolutely. Well, we won't go there.
Right. That's another podcast.
I agree. That's another podcast. But yes, celebrating them and teaching them how to celebrate themselves at a young age. We definitely would have done a lot more of that.
Absolutely. And, I know we're pushing time at this point, but I do have one final question, because you all have multiple children. I don't fall into that category. I just had one. But how have you had to deal with the differences in your children? Everybody has their own personality, no matter what family they came from, the same family, different. My cousin told me this a while back. She said that even though you may be born to the same parents in the same house, because you're either the first or the middle or the last, you're born to a different family.
Absolutely.
So how have you had to deal with that? How what is it that you did? Because, your first one is like, oh, okay, so you learn. But then your second one comes along and it's like, well, that's different.
I'll tag that one real quick. Because my kids are very different personalities. I have an introvert. I have, the one that, he's a unifier. And then I have the no limit soldier. Like he is not scared of anything or anybody.
Okay.
But so the introvert is very hard on himself. He's kind of a perfectionist, and he, I appeal to the me and him because I had to grow through that too. So nobody had to really tell me, oh, you need to do better in school if I was slipping in school, because I was already hard on myself. And so he's the same way. And so I have to give him that space and keep reminding him, like, you're not perfect and you don't have to strive for perfection. Do your best, and that's it. If you need help, ask for help, because again, that's something that I still struggle with it. I'm like, I do it myself. I'm not about to beg anybody to do anything for me. So it's just like, just appealing to the me in him and kind of letting him know, like, I was there too and I'm still there and we're kind of working through this together. And that seems to help, but it's a constant conversation. And with my other one, the no limit soldier needs nothing from me right now.
He's jumping off the couch,
is
the bed,
El
everything.
Jefe is what we call him. He is the boss of everything and everybody. So he's good right now. That's my youngest one. In my middle, he's the unifier. He wants to make everybody happy. Sometimes he downplays his own accomplishments so that he doesn't outshine other people. And so I also have to tell him, like you said, clap for yourself. It's okay. Like, if you're shining bright, shine. Don't dim your light for anybody. It's good to be the smartest kid. It's good to be the best on the field or on the court. You don't have to brag about it. You don't have to be, boastful about it, but you can have an inner confidence, about it. So that's I'll stop talking.
CoMakiya or Danielle, which one? Okay.
Well, as you know, I have twins, so it was when I had just them, even with them only being 1 minute apart, they are so different. My first one, he's more of a extrovert, people person, wants to be around the crowd, and the other one, not so much. He could find a corner and be content doing whatever he liked, and everybody knew that about him. So in terms of how I relate to them, sometimes it's how I give myself to them. Whether it's me just having an afternoon with one, or taking another one to a family function, or vice versa. It really does depend. Now with my little one, she is the boss. You're right about that.
Yep.
She likes to run every show that there may be. So for her, it's more of, okay, so let's get her involved more. She likes to be involved in certain things. She likes to, I'm still playing dolls. I play tea parties. It's just how I give of myself, really. And I was saying earlier, it's like, what love language do I need to share with you today? And they do switch it up. They switch it up.
Yeah.
So you really have to pay attention to what they need and, what they need from you and what you can give them. So, but at the same point, whatever one gets, they peep that out, like,
oh most definitely. Yeah.
How come I didn't get this
Right.
XYZ? Because
Yes.
I saw that
Absolutely.
you gave that to the other one.
Right.
And so I always had to be prepared. So if I had something in my mind of giving one, even if it wasn't materialistic, if it was time or if it, whatever it was, I had to have I had to have everybody's plan ready.
Right.
So I'm going to do this with you because you like this, but I'm going to get you this because you like that. Or, everybody has to have a plan, or nobody gets anything at all. It's like,
That's simple.
so you're going to be patient because it is this person's weekend, or it is, and if you cannot have that, they have to be, patient with us too, because we're trying to make sure that we get every, I dotted and T crossed. So
Because we're every woman,
it
right?
got to be everything to everybody at all times. So I had to communicate with that. Like, yeah, I got her a lollipop. No, I did not get you a lollipop because she's 5. Maybe she wants a lollipop and you're 14 and you don't need one. That can't be what you need. Like,
Right.
But in their instance, well, can I have a $25 game card? No. No, that's not how this works.
Right.
So I try to really steer away from materialistic things because who has all that? So
Right.
I really try to make it of a time. And like even today, us going walking, nobody's getting anything. We're just in it to get satisfaction of taking a walk, you know, being about our health. Like, so those types of things, sometimes I have to push it on them. And everybody wasn't happy. Everybody, the diva was not happy. The boss, she wanted to sit down. Like, come on, girl, get up. You know.
Yeah.
And at some point, you all have to take what I'm giving you, the same thing. So if Mama say we're going for a walk, we're going for a walk. You know, I'm not making 3 different dinners. Like all these types of things. Like those, I think there you have to have boundaries, as you said before. Like you have to have a boundary of that. But in some instances, I do try to, you know, make it specialized to their needs.
Yeah. CoMakiya.
Yeah. For me, it was a mixture of both when it came to meals, because I definitely had an extremely picky eater, Danielle. It was mashed potatoes, no gravy. Like it was very picky.
Okay.
So, you know, we had to concede a lot of times when it came to the meal. But just making a difference between both of them, I could not raise them the same. I mean, there were 2 separate genders. You know, my son is the oldest, my daughter's the youngest. You know, he was more of an extrovert. She's more of an introvert. She's very shy and quiet. He was outgoing, wanted to do everything and have a lot of friends. And he showed like a lot of leadership potential. He would go out into a group of kids he doesn't know and just, you know, find all of them like, hey, come on, we're going to play this game. You know, and he would easily do that, where she would kind of stand off and, you know, wait for kids to come to her and ask her if she wants to play the game. So just understanding the difference between the 2 of them and meeting them where they are. You know, sometimes they did get the same things. Sometimes they really didn't. Like, you know, my daughter probably would not have gotten as excited about a new pair of sneakers as my son would.
Right.
You know, so it was just finding what they liked and finding that balance for them, but still trying to equally give them something. Sure. You know, it may not have necessarily been the same material thing or something like that, but just finding something there and giving them both that time that I had, because my time seemed to be very limited. But when I did have it, I wanted to make sure that they both knew that it was available to them.
Absolutely. I think you said something key to CoMakiya in raising children, whether they are multiples, whether they are one child in the family, and that is meeting that child where he or she is. You know, whatever it is that is in their personality, to meet them there, whether you see some of you in that personality and knowing how you had to either overcome or, you know, maybe even curtail some of your own personality, teaching them in that way. And I think that's really the key to raising children in general, and certainly through prayer and through, you know, activities in church and Bible class and Sunday school, raising that godly child in this ungodly world.
Amen.
Yes. Amen. Well, I want to thank you for being with us for 2 episodes of our podcast about raising godly children really trying to raise godly children, right?
Yes.
In this ungodly world. And hopefully we do pretty well by our kids, and they will grow up to be the adults that we would esteem for them to be. So
That's our prayer.
through prayer, through supplication,
Fasting.
lots of prayer, and all of that.
Fast watching prayer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you for coming back with us for part 2 as well, and for sharing your personal stories. I appreciate that. And hopefully our audience will appreciate that too, as I knock over the mic. We thank you for joining us for Her Space, our podcast with the women here at Victory Apostolic Church. We invite you to join us again, because we'll be back with some more of Her Space, and we'll talk about things that will be important to you. At least that's what we hope. We're doing our research and trying to cover those things that you want to hear about and that you're interested in. So thank you for joining us. Thanks again to my guest. And please look for another Her Space podcast right here with Victory at the Table Talk. Thank you, and God bless you. Have a victorious day.
Come get your victory.